What if I told you that someone who claimed to know absolutely nothing about what was about to happen had already searched the name of the victim on the internet almost a full year before the murders took place? What if I told you that on the very day a man sat down with his 2 little daughters, threw water balloons with them, drove them home singing songs, gave them both a shower, read them bedtime stories, and tucked them in for the very last time, the name of the woman he was secretly seeing completely disappears from the official investigation timeline? Not a mention, not a ping, not a single entry. Not on the day before the murders, not on the morning of the murders, as if she had never existed. And yet, that same evening, she was on the phone with him for 111 minutes. 111 minutes, while his pregnant wife was boarding a flight home. My name is Donald Martinez.
I am an investigative reporter, and in 2026, I am still asking the questions that this case has never fully answered. Welcome or welcome back to True Crime Stories HD. Before we go one step further into this story, I need us to stop, because this case, like every case we cover on this channel, is not a story about a monster. It is a story about people who deserved to live. Shanann Watts. She was 34 years old. She was a mother, she was a wife, she was a businesswoman, she was 15 weeks pregnant and looking forward to going home. Oh, she had posted to Facebook just hours before she landed. She said, ready to get home to Chris and the girls. She had no idea what was waiting for her. Bella Watts. 4 years old. She loved water balloons. She sang in the car. She was read bedtime stories the very night she was taken.
Celeste Watts. 3 years old. A baby. Just a baby. And Nico. Nico was the name Shanann had chosen for the son she was carrying. The family's first boy. Chris Watts' first son. Nico never took a single breath outside of his mother's womb. Oh, Heavenly Father, we lift the names of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico into your hands. May they rest in a peace that this world failed to give them. May their memories be carried forward with dignity. May those of us who seek truth do so in their honor. Amen. If you were watching this right now, drop a prayer emoji in the comments. Let's give them that, at least. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from in 2026? Drop your city, your country, your state below. I want to see how far their story has traveled. A word from your host, Donald Martinez. I want to take a moment and be honest with you, the way I always try to be honest with you. I don't cover true crime for entertainment. I cover it because I know what it means.
The person who took my child's life was convicted, sentenced to life in prison. And people ask me, Donald, is that justice? Is life in prison enough for what he did? I genuinely do not have a clean answer for you. I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because that question still follows me. And here's another one I wrestle with. He asked for my forgiveness from prison.
He actually wrote and asked me to forgive him. Should I? Tell me what you think. Tell me honestly, because I am still working through it. Some mornings I wake up and there is nothing. No funding, no network, no corporate backing, no team, just me, the truth, and a microphone. And I have to tell myself, Donald, keep going. Keep going for the ones who cannot speak for themselves anymore. So here I am, still going, and I am grateful, deeply grateful, that you are here with me. Now, let's get into it.
August 13th, 2018. Frederick, Colorado. A neighbor noticed something strange at 2825 Saratoga Trail. Shanann Watts' friend had come to check on her and couldn't reach her. The door was answered not by Shanann, but by her husband, Christopher Watts. By that evening, Christopher Watts was on the local news. He gave an interview asking for his family to come home safely. Investigators would later confirm that at the time he was giving that interview, at the time he was looking into a camera asking the public to help find his family, he already knew exactly where they were. Because he had put them there. On August 13th, 2018, Christopher Watts murdered his wife Shanann, who was 15 weeks pregnant with their son Nico. He then took the lives of his daughters, Bella, age 4, and Celeste, age 3. He drove their bodies to an oil work site and buried Shanann in a shallow grave while submerging his daughters in oil tanks. These were his children, his babies, children he had taken to a birthday party the afternoon before, children he had sung to sleep that very night. That is the weight of what we are talking about today. He knew the night before, in his own words. While serving multiple life sentences at Dodge Correctional Facility in Wisconsin, Chris Watts began writing letters to a woman named Sherilyn Cadle. And in one of those, August 13th, 2018. Frederick, Colorado. A neighbor noticed something strange at 2825 Saratoga Trail. Shanann Watts' friend had come to check on her and couldn't reach her. The door was answered not by Shanann, but by her husband, Christopher Watts. By that evening, Christopher Watts was on the local news. He gave an interview asking for his family to come home safely. Investigators would later confirm that at the time he was giving that interview, at the time he was looking into a camera asking the public to help find his family, he already knew exactly where they were. Because he had put them there. On August 13th, 2018, Christopher Watts murdered his wife Shanann, who was 15 weeks pregnant with their son Nico. He then took the lives of his daughters, Bella, age 4, and Celeste, age 3. He drove their bodies to an oil work site and buried Shanann in a shallow grave while submerging his daughters in oil tanks. These were his children, his babies, children he had taken to a birthday party the afternoon before, children he had sung to sleep that very night. That is the weight of what we are talking about today. He knew the night before, in his own words. While serving multiple life sentences at Dodge Correctional Facility in Wisconsin, Chris Watts began writing letters to a woman named Sherilyn Cadle. And in one of those
letters, he wrote something that removes any possible doubt about whether this was planned. He wrote, and I am paraphrasing carefully, that on the evening of August 12th, after he finished putting his daughters to bed, he walked away from their room and said to himself, "That is the last time I will ever tuck my babies in." He said he knew what was coming. He said he was numb to the entire world. He said that even though he had just played with water balloons with them that afternoon, driven them home singing, given them both showers, read them stories, and sung them songs, nothing registered. He could not stop himself from what he already knew would happen the next morning. This was not a crime of passion. This was not a moment of rage. This was something he had already decided. The question is, when did he decide it? And was he the only one who knew? Part 2. Nichol Kessinger, who she was and what she knew. Introducing Kessinger. Careful, factual, let the facts speak. Nichol Kessinger was a co-worker of Christopher Watts at Anadarko Petroleum. She and Watts had begun a romantic relationship in the weeks before the murders. By her own account, she did not know Watts was married until well into their relationship, though the investigation would surface details that raise serious questions about that claim. Here is the first detail I want you to hold in your mind.
The very first entry on the official discovery timeline for this case, the very first item, is not about Chris Watts. It is not about Shanann. It is not about the children. It is Nichol Kessinger searching the name Shanann Watts on the internet. In September of 2017. Oh. Before she and Chris Watts have ever claimed to have met one another. Let that settle in. September 2017. The murder is August 2018. That is nearly a full year before the crime. She searches the name of the woman who will be killed before the relationship with the killer has even officially started. The night before the Lazy Dog date, August 11th. On Saturday, August 11th, 2018, 2 days before the murders, Christopher Watts took Nichol Kessinger on a dinner date to a restaurant called the Lazy Dog. That same night, at 10:04 p.m., right after Watts left her house, Kessinger conducted internet searches for the names Christopher Watts, Shanann Watts, Ronnie Watts, and the family home address at 2825 Saratoga Trail. She searched the home address, the home where his wife and children were sleeping. In his own prison interviews, Watts reflected on that date with stunning and troubling candor. He said, if things had gone differently that night at the Lazy Dog, if he had just made a different choice, if he had said yes to his friend who invited him to a football game instead, maybe things would have gone in a different direction.
In his own mind, in the mind of the man who committed this crime, the decision to destroy his family is directly connected to his relationship with Nichol Kessinger. He says it, not me. August 12th, the day her name disappears. Sunday, August 12th, 2018, the day before the murders. This is the day of the 111-minute phone call between Christopher Watts and Nichol Kessinger. That call began at 9:28 in the evening and ended at 11:19 at night. This is also the day Shanann Watts made 3 Facebook posts from Arizona, where she had been on a business trip for her company Thrive. At 1:59 in the afternoon, she wrote, "Ready to get home to Chris and the girls." At
5:20 in the evening. Felt the baby move twice this weekend. Oh. She felt her son move. She wrote it down. She shared it with the world. And then at 11:09 that night, near the end of that 111-minute phone call, Shanann posted a map of her flight from Arizona back to Denver. And she wrote again.
And then, on August 12th, her name is simply not there. Not once on the official Discovery timeline. The day of the 111-minute phone call, the last full day before 4 people were killed. And on the morning of August 13th itself, the day of the murders, her phone pings in Frederick, Colorado at 6:16 a.m. But that ping does not appear on the official timeline either. I am not drawing a conclusion. I am telling you what is and what is not in the documents. You decide what that means. The text messages with Charlotte Nelson. Although Kessinger's name is absent from the official timeline on August 12th, her activity on that day does exist through a series of text messages she exchanged with her best friend, Charlotte Nelson. These messages are significant enough that 3 separate investigators independently focused on them in detail. Special Agent Kevin Kobach of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Detective Stacy Galbraith, and Detective Dave Baumhover, the lead detective of the Frederick Police Department at the time of the murders. The messages represent the first time Kessinger is introducing Charlotte to the man she has been secretly seeing. She describes him as someone who is very attentive to his children. She says he is all about his kids. She speaks positively about him physically. She says she thinks she really likes her. But
she also says, I feel like I will always come second. Like he has already been there and done that. And every guy I meet these days either has kids or has commitment issues. Those 2 sentences. That is what law enforcement kept coming back to. Not the affectionate parts, not the excitement. Those 2 sentences. Detective Stacy Galbraith contacted Charlotte Nelson on 3 separate days, September 5th, September 6th, and September 7th. Each day she came back with the same question, probing a little deeper. What did Kessinger actually mean? How did she feel about Chris having children? Did she ever express that discomfort to him directly? Charlotte gave answers. Investigators were not satisfied with them because the answers kept shifting. The final interview, 1 hour and 53 minutes in. On August 23, 2018, Special Agent Kevin Kobach sat down with Nichol Kessinger for what would be her final major recorded interview. The conversation lasted 2.5 hours. For 2.5 hours, Kobach asked her questions from every possible direction. She deflected.
At 1 hour and 53 minutes into that interview, he is still asking. He frames it simply. He says, "You talked to Charlotte about being a little uncomfortable with him having kids because you want your own family. Is that a fair way to put it?" She says, "I guess." She insists she never communicated any of that to Chris directly. She says she was always inclusive when it came to his children. She says she was even considerate of Shanann. But she had deleted her messages with Chris Watts from her phone. She claimed she deleted them because seeing them made her uncomfortable, because he had been making her feel uneasy. In Colorado, destroying evidence during an open investigation is a crime. Kobach acknowledged this to her, And then, in what appears to be an investigative technique designed to lower her defenses, he told her he wasn't concerned about it. He told her he had no reason to think she ever told Chris to harm his wife or his children. And then, less than 2 minutes later, he asked her again. That is what investigators do when they believe someone is not telling them everything. The 7-page letter, and what it leaves out. This is the detail that should stop viewers cold. Read it quietly.
On September 4th, 2018, Nichol Kessinger voluntarily walked into a law enforcement office. She surrendered her iPhone 6, and she handed investigators a 7-page typed letter that she had personally prepared. 7 pages, written by her own hand, recounting her memory of events leading up to the murders. Reading through that letter, the purpose is clear. It is a document designed to get ahead of whatever might be found when investigators forensically examined her phone, Chris Watt's phone, and any other evidence connected to her. It is a letter written by someone who was thinking carefully about what investigators might find. Now, 7 pages, covering the relationship, the timeline, her memories, her interactions, and not a single entry for August 12th. Oh, the day of the 111-minute phone call, the final day before 4 people were murdered, the most important day on the pre-crime timeline. In 7 pages, written by the woman who was on the phone with the killer for nearly 2 hours that very evening, that date does not exist. Not one word. I am going to let that speak for itself. Part 3. This is not the first time.
One of the things that stays with me as an investigative reporter, and as someone who has personally experienced the violence that comes from broken families, is this. The Watts case is not an isolated incident. There is a documented pattern in family annihilation cases involving men who are conducting secret romantic relationships at the time of the murders. And when you line these cases up side by side, the similarities are not coincidental. They are a warning. A warning that we as a society have not fully heard. Scott Peterson, Lacey Peterson, and baby Connor, Modesto, California, 2002. Lacey Peterson. She was 27 years old. She was 8 months pregnant with the couple's first child, a son they had already named Connor. It was Christmas Eve, 2002, Modesto, California. Lacey disappeared from her home while her husband, Scott Peterson, claimed to have been on a solo fishing trip. Lacey's family spent months searching for her. The entire nation watched. And then in April 2003, her body and the body of baby Connor washed ashore in San Francisco Bay, not far from where Scott claimed to have been fishing. During the entire time his pregnant wife was missing, the vigils, the press conferences, the public appeals, Scott Peterson was conducting an affair with a woman named Amber Frey. He had told Amber Frey that he was a widower, that he had lost his wife. He told her this before Lacey was ever reported missing.
Amber Frey eventually cooperated with law enforcement. She made recorded calls to Scott while investigators listened. Those recordings became some of the most damning evidence in the trial. Scott Peterson was convicted of first-degree murder for the death of Lacey and second-degree murder for the death of Connor. He was sentenced to death, later commuted to life without the possibility of parole. The parallels to the Watts case are painful to read. A pregnant wife, a secret girlfriend, a husband who showed no public signs of distress, while privately having already planned his way out of his family's way. And a set of questions that sound almost identical to the ones surrounding Nichol Kessinger, about exactly how much the girlfriend knew and when. Neil Entwistle, Rachel and Lillian Entwistle, Hopkinton, Massachusetts, 2006. These are young lives. Respect the weight of a 9-month-old baby. Rachel Entwistle. She was 27 years old. Her daughter Lillian was 9 months old. In January 2006, both Rachel and Lillian were found shot to death in their home in Hopkinton, Massachusetts.
What connects this case to the Watts case and the Peterson case is not just the presence of an outside relationship. It is the duality of the man, the public face of a devoted husband and father, and the private reality of a man who had already mentally exited his family long before the murders occurred.
These men did not snap. They planned. They calculated. And someone, in some of these cases, may have known more than the official record reflects.
Barry Morphew, Suzanne Morphew, Chaffee County, Colorado, 2020. This one hits close to the Watts case, geographically and emotionally. Colorado, same state. We do not have to go far from Frederick, Colorado to find another case that carries these same shadows. Suzanne Morphew disappeared from her home in Chaffee County, Colorado on May 10th, 2020. Mother's Day. Oh, Mother's Day. Her husband, Barry Morphew, launched a public appeal for her return. He cried on camera. He pleaded with whoever had taken her to bring her back. Investigators later discovered that Barry Morphew had been conducting an ongoing affair with a woman in the area at the time of his wife's disappearance. Evidence presented in the case suggested he had cast an illegal vote in Suzanne's name in the 2020 presidential election after she was already dead. Barry Morphew was charged with first-degree murder. The case went through years of legal proceedings. Charges were at one point dismissed on procedural grounds, then refiled. Suzanne Morphew's body has never been found. The affair, the public grief performance, the absence of a body, the ongoing legal battle. Colorado, 2020. You cannot look at this case and not think of Chris Watts standing in front.
When you lay these cases side by side, Scott Peterson, Neil Entwistle, Barry Morphew, and Chris Watts, a pattern emerges that is impossible to ignore. In each case, the husband was conducting a secret romantic relationship at the time of the crime. In each case, the public presentation of grief and concern was theatrical, choreographed. In each case, investigators found that the decision to destroy the family was not impulsive. It was preceded by calculation, planning, and in some cases, communication with the other woman. And in each case, the question that investigators struggled most to answer was this: how much did she know? Amber Frey in the Peterson case cooperated fully with investigators once she understood what she had been entangled in. She became a witness for the prosecution. In the Watts case, Nichol Kessinger was never charged. The investigation was closed, and the 111-minute phone call that took place the night before 4 people were killed remains, to this day, unaccounted for in the official discovery timeline. I am not telling you what happened on that call. Nobody outside of those 2 people can say with certainty. But I am telling you, as an investigative reporter who has spent years with these documents, that the absence of that information is not nothing. Silence in an investigation is not the same as innocence. Silence is a question that has not yet been answered.
But what I do know is this.
The only way I know how to honor my child, and honor Shanann, and honor Bella, and honor Celeste, and honor Nico, and honor every victim whose story passes through this channel, is to keep going. Some mornings, there is no money. There is no team. There is no machine behind me. Just the truth and a commitment to tell it. If this video mattered to you, please like it, share it, and subscribe to True Crime Stories HD. Every single share puts this story in front of someone who may not have heard it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, do you think the Watts investigation fully answered every question it should have? Do you think the right people were held accountable? I want to read every single one of your responses. And tell me where you were watching from in 2026. Your city, your country, your corner of the world.
We are now more than 7 years removed from the morning of August 13th, 2018.